Hello, and welcome back to the Nostalgic Futurist podcast. This week, I'm going to be talking about downtown Disney, what's there, what was there, and what we hope to see in the future. I'm going to start at the Disneyland Hotel end of downtown Disney and work my way towards the theme parks. The first building is on our left. It used to be the ESPN zone, and most recently was PopUp Disney, a very expensive place to take some Instagram photos that were kind of themed after classic Mickey Mouse things, or there was like a room of Minnie Mouse bows. I didn't really like the idea, and I wouldn't have paid the $35 to $40 to go do it. I think that they could have done it better by expanding it to include a lot more of their Disney films and making it a more permanent residence, and making it so that we could reenact like classic moments from Disney movies, like Ariel in the grotto with her fork as she like tries to swim up to the top and we see her through the little circle, or the end of Princess and the Frog where we see Tiana and Naveen getting married in this like beautiful bayou setting with all the fireflies. Something like that that's closer to the scary movies pop-up we saw in LA or the Britney Spears one. And just something that feels a little bit more like they're not just trying to steal our money, and they really want to have us be able to take some really cool photos that we can't have in the park. The ESPN zone and all the buildings surrounding it, like the AMC Theaters and the Rainforest Cafe, were all supposed to be torn out back in 2018 to become a new four-diamond Disney hotel in the west end of downtown Disney. The city of Anaheim, however, blocked this hotel from being built, and for a long time those buildings just sat empty. Now this area is very slowly getting rehabilitated back to something that people want to go to, and the PopUp Disney was part of that. However, I do think that they could be doing more and have some better ideas, especially because they took out the Rainforest Cafe, and according to things I've read, the Rainforest Cafe has expressed interest in coming back. And I think what's cool about a Rainforest Cafe is that it feels kind of like Disney, and no, of course, it's not to the same caliber, but it is a fun place to go if you have kids. They have the tropical fish in the tanks and the animatronic animals, and they have a really cute gift shop. And I mean, it does well in a setting like downtown Disney. Disney's solution to closing down all those buildings on the west side was to put up basically like food trucks in front of the AMC Theater and the Rainforest Cafe. And while that's a great way to sell food to people, and food trucks are great, I don't think that that is a good enough band-aid for such large buildings being kept empty. Now, I've never had the Asian Street Eats, but I've heard a lot of great things about it. And, you know, maybe having a permanent food truck area could be really fun. But I don't think blocking an abandoned building is always the best way to promote the food trucks. It was truly amazing to me how quickly they brought back the Earl of Sandwich. Now, I know that place is really popular. I'm not a sandwich eater, so I can't attest to it. But they plugged that thing back in as soon as possible. And as far as I know, it's very popular, and it's kind of a fun-looking building, so I'm kind of glad that it's back in that area. Something that's never really made sense to me is the AMC Theaters in downtown Disney. I get it, it's kind of like City Walk, where City Walk also has a movie theater, and downtown Disney and City Walk are intended to be places that people maybe go in the evening when they don't have a ticket to the theme parks. I've just never really seen that AMC be very busy. And maybe I'm just not seeing the crowds of people going in there, but I really don't even remember that many people going into the theater. So maybe it's just not a great idea to have a movie theater in downtown Disney when you could go into the theme parks and basically live the movies for real. Another thing I've never really understood about downtown Disney is having these like third-party run stores that I could go visit in any shopping center, in any mall, almost anywhere. And most recently, they've added a place called Sugar Boo & Co. to this area of downtown Disney. And it looks like they kind of just sell like home goods and tchotchkes. And maybe there's a market for it. But I don't know that there's a lot of people going to downtown Disney to buy home goods and tchotchkes that aren't specifically from Disney. I just don't see it. And so I also know that they like hike prices a lot in these stores. And so I never go into like the Sunglasses Hut or the Sanuk store or any of those like places that sell things I could buy at a normal mall because I'm at Disneyland and I'm looking to shop for Disney merchandise. The one exception I think though is the Lego store. It's been there forever, and it's so iconic with its Disney characters built out of Legos that are ginormous, like sitting on and around the building. I personally never really got into Legos, but I've got to say, I love watching them play all the games with like race car logos and stuff out front with kids, and having those gigantic Disney characters really makes it feel like it's part of Downtown Disney. If Downtown Disney only consisted of Ralph Brennan's Jazz Kitchen, that would be totally fine with me. It's by far the best restaurant there, and it's one of my favorite things about going. It's themed just as much as Disneyland itself. I mean, you go in the bathroom and there's murals of like the bayou on the walls, and it's just like so immersive, and it's fun to see which dining room you end up in, or eating out on the porches that are up on the balcony or on the street level. You just feel like almost as if you're transported, even though you can totally see the rest of Downtown Disney and see that it's not New Orleans. And their food's great, and they play live jazz in the downstairs dining room. I mean, can it get any better? This restaurant's amazing, and if you want to have a great time and still feel like you're kind of in Disneyland but have good food, I highly suggest going there. This next section has a lot of restaurants and stuff like slammed together. There's Tortilla Joe's, there's Splitsville, there's Black Tap and Ballast Point and the Yuva Bar. There's just a bunch of restaurants like crammed into the center of Downtown Disney, and I think some of them are better than others. I've been to Tortilla Joe's, it's all right. I've never been to Splitsville, but the idea of a restaurant and a bowling alley being in the same place is a little weird to me because bowling alleys are kind of gross and germy, but I mean, they're trying to go for that 1950s thing. I think it was cooler when the House of Blues was there, but maybe that's just me. I've never eaten or had a drink at the Yuva Bar that's in the middle of Downtown Disney. And while I think it's kind of cool to have a bar there, like in the middle, because it's just kind of like fun and lit up at night, I don't know, it just feels kind of like disjunct to me to the rest of everything. And it blocks the walkway, which can be kind of annoying to have to go around it. Black Tap is a great restaurant. They've got Crazy Shake. They've got great burgers. Ballast Point is on top of Black Tap. And this used to be the building that was the Build-A-Bear workshop. And if you go up to Ballast Point, they still have a pirate dressed up Build-A-Bear up on one of the rafters because their theme is like nautical. It's just really great to see that Disney is bringing in new restaurants to try and liven up the place that's had a lot of the same restaurants since it was built. One of the newer shops that's in the area around all these restaurants is the Disney Home Store, which sells Disney-themed merchandise for your home, like cooking utensils, blankets, mugs, anything in that realm. It's a really cute store. It's on the smaller side, but they do have a lot of rotating merchandise of different lines that come into style. And of course, they have the classic favorites like the Mickey and Minnie line and the Haunted Mansion line in the back. Also in the central curve of Downtown Disney is The Void, which is a virtual reality place where you can go and step into Star Wars stories. I've never been there personally, but from what it sounds like, it's supposed to be way more immersive than the VR you can do at home. I think this is a great addition to Downtown Disney, even though it feels like something that should be in like the theme parks, because this is an area where you're trying to attract people to come to in addition to going to the theme parks. Of course, there are the locals who come here in the evenings to go have a drink and shop around a little bit, but you're also trying to make Downtown Disney almost into a part of your day. And for me, if I come to Disney the night before, I'll go to Downtown Disney and hang out there for the evening because it still feels like I'm at Disney. I'm just not paying to be in the park. So I was first exposed to Salt and Straw, the ice cream place, in Anaheim. And I really feel that it didn't do justice to this company. I went up to Portland, which is where they're based and where they're from, and the ice cream flavors they have there are even crazier than the ones in Anaheim. The shop also has this really like Portlandy feel to it where it just feels unique and not like a chain. And I kind of wish that the Salt and Straw in Anaheim had that same like hole in the wall kind of really trendy but cool, like not everybody super knows about it kind of mystique that Salt and Straw has. I mean, it's a great place to go, but I think that they need to start introducing some of those more crazy flavors into this ice cream store so that you can finally like feel what a real Salt and Straw is like. I was so happy when they came out with the Disney dress line, where they take characters or attractions or things that are just strictly Disney and make them into really cute vintage style dresses. My only problem with them is that they're very expensive for what you're getting. I'm a seamstress, so I know what it costs to make a dress, and that's really expensive for the cheap fabrics they use. But it was really fun at the beginning to see all the crazy characters and how they would make them fit into a really cute vintage dress. Like, I love the Mary Poppins one. And they started making sweaters and matching purses and a lot of fun stuff like that. I just wish that they kept the creativity up with the dresses, that they've kind of lost a lot of steam recently. They're just not quite as thought out and quite as cute. But I do like the idea of having a dress shop for them in downtown Disney, where it really feels like I'm going into this store to look at all these cute vintage dresses. And I really feel like Disney is doing a great job of creating more stores that feel like they really did need to be on their own and not be shoved into the world of Disney. Okay, so I wasn't a very big fan of the Naples restaurant before the remodel, but ever since the remodel, it feels modern. It really helps to update downtown Disney, which they've been doing a lot of recently. The buildings really felt like old California Adventure for a very long time, but they've slowly been progressively bringing it into a modern era and kind of tying it in better with the Grand Californian Hotel that it butts up against. I really like the restaurant, what they've done with it. They've kept that kind of Italian flair, but not making it feel like cheesy and stereotypical. I'm a little in awe that we really need a Starbucks everywhere, and the fact that they actually put a Starbucks in Disneyland itself and DCA is kind of like, really? We can't go without our Starbucks for 10 seconds? That being said, they do have a gigantic Starbucks in downtown Disney, and they have a smaller one on the west side, but the east side Starbucks is huge, and they've done a kind of a great job with designing it to feel like, I think, what would be like the grassroots of what Starbucks' company says that they're doing, which is, they're like global, and they like to use like lots of fresh ingredients, and they have like a big globe, and they kind of make it feel earthy. So I mean, it's a great design. I just kind of wish that at least in the Disney parks they maybe came up with their own like great coffee shop. All right, we've really hit the end of our downtown Disney tour. There is the La Brea Bakery closer to the parks, but the World of Disney is kind of the end of downtown Disney. It's a gigantic store that only sells Disney merchandise. And on the whole, it sells most of the things you can find in the park. However, I will say there are some things that you can only get in the park. So be careful if you think you're going to go get it at World of Disney and they don't have it, and then you got to go back in the park to go get it. World of Disney just got updated, and it looks great. They took out a lot of that cheesy kind of old early 2000s feeling of just bright colors that are just too much and too bright, and they've really tied it in with the Grand Californian. It's got lots of like exposed wooden beams, and it's kind of this cream color that they can then project on, and they have these really cute things behind the cash registers, like movie posters that change between all the old vintage movie posters, or they have a wall that's full of like, looks like the powder paint that they used to use for animation, and you can see Tinkerbell kind of crawl into all the little different jars, and like they're a beautiful rainbow, and it just feels a lot better, and it's a lot more spacious, so it's easier to walk through, because this store can get so cramped. But it's a great way if you want to get out of the cold or the heat for a little while and walk a huge chunk of downtown Disney. I'm not gonna lie, making this week's episode was a little difficult. It's kind of hard to talk about downtown Disney and not feel like I really, really wanted to go there and go to Disneyland. But we got through it, and I'm glad to get to talk about downtown Disney because it feels very forgotten a lot of the time by people. I hope you'll join me next week on the Nostalgic Futurist podcast. And let's remember, even though we are going back to some of our regular content, it is important to remember that there are more important things going on than wishing that Disneyland was open. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.